All right, welcome everyone to the American Honor Symposium. We're going to get started for today. So I just want to thank all the faculty and staff who helped put this together and help students with their projects and research. And thank you for all the students who are here to present their research today. We're very excited to see what you have to tell us about. We are going to have Dr. Rotunda. Did you have a few comments you want to make?
Was Dr. Planario speaking first? Or?
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome everyone. We're obviously really excited that you could join us today. We're really proud of all the students, their work, and of course all the faculty and staff that have supported the students and the program over all these years. This is an annual event where American Honor students have the opportunity to present and showcase their original projects, papers, and research in collaboration and guidance with the American Honors faculty. Chance to exhibit their work, their hard work over the semester, some longer. We're really proud of you, and we're excited to see what you've been up to and what we can learn from this. And you know, it was actually a year ago that our previous American Honors Symposium was held, December 3rd, 2019. Really different situation, but it shows you how quickly our faculty, staff, and students can adapt and pivot as needed. So we're proud of you and we're excited. Dr. Rotunda?
Welcome, everyone. Again, much appreciation to everyone here for their commitment to the honors program, and obviously to everybody who worked on the projects we're about to see. Just a few ground rules. Please keep yourself muted unless you're presenting. Each group is going to have no more than 5 minutes, and I actually have to keep you to that. I will politely cut you off if you start to go over to make sure that we have time so that everyone can present. Audience members, we're asking if you could put questions in the chat. If we have a little time after the students present, you know, their particular project to answer questions, we'll include that in the 5 minutes. If not, we ask the students to maybe check the chat after you're done. So if anyone has any questions for you, you can answer them there, and we can continue the conversation throughout the presentation. All right, so we will start with our first presenters doing community outreach, Leilani Corea, Tawan Green, and Vanessa Aguilar Pereira.
Hi, everyone. So for our project, we decided to do a community outreach project just so that we can feel like we're helping the environment a little bit. Yeah, thank you. So we decided to volunteer to clean up the park, like I said before, just as a way to clean up the environment and feel like we're helping it out a little. Our original idea was actually to help out at an animal shelter, but unfortunately with all the COVID rules, it kind of made it a little hard. But with this, we still had a chance to help out, like squirrels and any other animals that are in the park, just to make sure like that they're not eating any garbage or harming themselves in any way. Okay, so when we were cleaning up, we noticed that we found a lot of bottles, plastic utensils, beer and water bottle caps, as well as bottle wrap, paper, and mask. And we found a lot of the garbage under the bleachers and in the picnic area and around the baseball area. And I feel that it's sad to say that a lot of the garbage that we found, it was mostly where people spend their time a lot. So obviously when you go to the park, a lot of people tend to throw parties around the picnic area. So that's where we found most of the garbage. And it was just really upsetting.
Hi, I'm Vanessa, and my part was, why should we keep our parks clean now? I feel that it is way more important than before, because I mean, not a lot of people go out now because it's cold, but in the summer with the quarantine and everything, people would spend most of their time inside, and that obviously I feel like it affects a person. So it would be good for a person to go out and to a park, and it's important to have it clean, of course, now because of COVID. And with a well-maintained park, it offers a safe and enjoyable place for people to visit for hiking, picnicking, sporting activities, or just relaxing, of course. And it's every visitor's job to keep it clean, which helps to contribute to a more welcoming park experience.
Okay, so as we were cleaning the park, we actually learned a lot from this experience. And although cleaning trash may not seem kind of fun, for me, I think I kind of found it fun and interesting. But anyways, we learned that it doesn't take much to go out and help the environment. Like even if you're, even if you're walking down the street and you see a water bottle, it doesn't take much to just pick it up and properly dispose of it. And even just doing that, it makes a huge difference. And like I said before, it might have not seemed fun, but while you're picking up the garbage, I guess it's kind of sad at the same time, because you see that people don't really care about the environment that much, because they could easily, like, instead of disposing of it properly, they just find it easier to throw it on the ground.
Hi everyone. My name is.
Hold on one second, Anna. We do have another minute from that project. If anybody has any quick questions. You can throw them in the chat if you do, just while we're waiting or before we go to the next one. I will introduce, so there's no confusion, I will introduce the next project so you know when you're ready to start. And if the students who are presenting could keep their camera on, at least just while you're presenting, we really would love to see you as you're presenting your project. We have fewer opportunities to see each other, so at least while you're presenting, put your camera on. Right, so no questions? All right, so next we do have Anna Zografaki. If you're ready, Anna.
Hi, so I decided to do a project for my philosophy class about Thomas Hobbes. That also gave me an opportunity to be ahead and just learn more about him. So who is Thomas Hobbes? He is an English philosopher. He is also a scientist, a historian, and he was best known for his political philosophy. He was born in April 5th of 1588, and he died on December 4th of 1679. He was a modern philosopher in the 17th century, and he was very famous for his early development of the social contract theory. And one of his best known books was The Leviathan. So the Leviathan and the social contract theory. So the book Leviathan, he named his book The Leviathan because he wanted to showcase strength and power. And the Leviathan is a mythic creature that they used in like religion that was like against God. So because he had a very negative view of human nature, he chose that name. And he wrote it as a response to the fear that he experienced during the English wars. So he argued that the absolute power of the sovereign was justified by the government, to the government, they agreed in the hypothetical social contract, and they obeyed in the sovereign. Also, the exchange of the peace and the security was also part of the things that he talks about in the Leviathan. So basically, what the Leviathan is showcasing is his beliefs that he has about the human nature, that it was very negative. Some of his beliefs was that he had, again, the negative view of human nature. He believed that humans were very selfish. They were unwilling and untrustworthy to govern themselves, and they will act in very evil impulses. And the nature was too selfishly motivated, and that was one of his beliefs. And they were in a constant battle of power. So like humans were going back and forth with each other. So his ethics were concerned with the human nature, and freedom and democracy like spread war. So his beliefs about human nature were really bad. He believed that like humans were just evil and just very selfish. Some of his famous quotes from the Leviathan are "no arts, no letters, no society, and which is worst of all, continual fear and danger of violent death, and life of men, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, in short." Another one is, if men are naturally in a state of war, why do they always carry arms, and why do they have keys to lock their doors? And the last one is, true and false are attributes of speech, not of things, and where speech is not, there is neither truth nor falsehood. And that is the end of the presentation. So basically, I decided to do Thomas Hobbes because I do agree with many of his beliefs about the human nature. His book, The Leviathan, sounds really interesting, and I do want to read it, in the near future. And I just agree with everything he has to say about human nature because I do myself have lost faith in humanity.
That was quite an ending, Anna. Thank you so much. Okay, and again, any questions, just put them in the chat and the students will keep checking that. Our next presentation is Radioisotope Thermoelectric Generator, RTG Battery, by Mark Farag.
Hello, my name is Mark. I made a representation for EGG 101. The other presentation is talking about the battery, new thing about the battery and how to improve the batteries at the future. One of the batteries I would think about it is like radioisotopes thermoelectrical generator. The abbreviation for all of the name is RTG batteries. So why we think about the new kind of batteries? Because our life now is working on like electric cars, phone, and laptops. Imagine like you have like a representation right now, and your laptop like died because like I don't have that charger, or you're driving your car and you run out of battery, so you have to like charge it at anywhere. We have electric cars right now, so we have to think about how to get like a good batteries to stay more and stay with your car, your phone, and your laptops. So how does it work? This a nuclear power battery. They're using it with platinum-238 to generate electric energy. How does it work? It absorbs the radiation and make it thermal. With that thermal, you can convert it to make electricity, like the solar cell, but like with a huge amount of electricity. We use it at NASA right now. NASA using it at many missions that are going to Mars. They use it actually at one of the missions that went to the Mars. Stayed for like 4 years or 5 years without like stop. They're using it at military weapons. I know there's like at the Navy, there's one of the machines, one of the working with RTG batteries because they stay for a long time without a charging or like without a fuel.
We'll go on to the next, which will be Zeel Patel with My Still Work.
Hi everyone, this video is all about my journey to improve my sketching and drawing skills. So it all started like this. I sat at a place with all of my tools. I used a flat pencil lead to shade the picture and give details precisely. As I was already knowing and I was pretty sure that I'm comfortable with drawing curves and measurements, so it wasn't that difficult for me in the beginning. It all went nicely and I loved the results. I thought it was my best trial. I was amazed. Isn't it? So, here is what I did then. Something out of the box. Tried to sketch my neighbor's picture. That was cool, really. Firstly, it seemed really difficult. I made a lot of mistakes and tried to cover it up. After the hard work of 2 whole days working on the same picture from different angles, I tried my best to get the best results. And when it was done, I was really happy. And I decided to give him the sketch as a gift. And I wanted to see his reaction. So I added some more details and I was ready to go. Trust me, he was actually shocked and surprised at the same time, knowing that I am such a skillful person. After gaining confidence, I started practicing more sketches regularly. Here are some of them. You can have a look. Different person, different sketches, and in different ways. I like everything, every sketch. But the best of all, I think, is yet to come. And it's the last one. Simple, but definitely with a deep meaning. A woman with 2 faces. Thank you.
It looks like Jessica said Zeel was actually unable to join us today, but that was a very impressive artwork and video. If anybody knows her, please, pass on the compliments she was getting in the chat. Yeah, I'm sorry?
I am Zeel.
Oh, you're here?
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for that. Sorry, Jessica thought you weren't able to attend.
No worries, I wasn't able to attend, but due to the kindness of Professor Montes, we are attending it.
Oh, you're in your biology lab?
In the bio lab.
Oh, good. I hope you're able to see all the compliments you're getting in the chat.
Yeah, I'm watching it.
Oh, good. The next one, we have Cellular Respiration with Jocelyn Huilotl and Nicolas Vargas. Nicolas or Jocelyn here? They might be in the bio lab.
Yeah, we're here. Oh, okay.
Oh, great. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so my name is Jocelyn, this is my partner Nick, and we're both bio majors.
As a presentation for biology honors. So, experiment 1, Jocelyn.
Okay, so for this experiment, we first had to get 2 beakers, and the first beaker was a sample, one which had 40 milliliters of yeast suspension, and 40 milliliters of water, and 60 of sucrose solution.
Maria.
And B had 60 of yeast suspension and 120 of water. So after we completely filled each sample into 2 separate beakers, sealed with rubber stoppers that holds an inverted 10 milliliter pipette, and we record the liquid foam that forms every 10 minutes for 60 to 70 minutes.
Oh, there's a little audio cue. Click on that.
You can see that accumulation of gas for flask number 1 was a lot more abundant as more CO2 was released, because in cellular respiration, the equation, CO2 is one of the end products. And in order to initiate cellular respiration for both anaerobic and aerobic respiration, you require sucrose. Sucrose being simple and fast energy. So with yeast suspension being able to feed off of sucrose, it managed to create a lot of CO2. So it managed to rise out of the pipette even faster than it were if there wasn't any. So thus concluding that there was a lot more gas accumulation in flask number 1, and it provided a very alcoholic smell, because in anaerobic respiration, the 2 byproducts would either be lactic acid in humans and animals, or it would be ethanol in plants. And the function of flask 2 is to be a negative control group. As we know, without glucose, there wouldn't really be much of a CO2 released in anaerobic respiration or aerobic respiration, since it's required to produce ATP. And liquid tends to rise up with the pipette because of the capillary reaction, also because the CO2 happened to be released, because as you can see, there are bubbles that form, thus releasing CO2 and kind of causing the liquid in the pipette to rise.
For experiment number 2, you first mount a 125 milliliter side arm flask on each test with clamp, and we use the plastic funnel to fill one flask almost to the neck, the remaining piece, and fill the other flask with an equal volume of dry piece. Then we loosen the fibers of half bulk, cut it, and place it on the top of the sleeves. Close the flask with a rubber stopper, and we inserted the cut end of 1 milliliter disposable pipette into the rubber tubing of the flask side arm. We secure the pipette into a position with the tank filled with room temperature water. We let the temperature in the tube stabilize for 10 minutes. We use the syringe to insert a drop of colored water into the pipette and let the temperature stay for 5 minutes. We recorded the position of the colored water in the pipette and then the position of the colored water in the pipette at 1 minute intervals for 5 minutes. We calculated the total change in the volume since time 0 for each of our readings and recorded that in the table. We repeated the steps 7 to 10 with different temperatures of water.
In experiment 2, it was found that at higher temperatures, oxygen was consumed faster as the peas were respiring, as plants, humans, and animals need oxygen to consume in order to produce ATP in cellular respiration. Thus is the case that when there is more oxygen present and the temperature is higher, the rate of glucose being metabolized is much higher as well. As you can see here, due to measuring the red liquid put inside the pipette, we can see that at temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, by the time 4 minutes passed, the pipette already reached the 12 milliliter mark, thus concluding that it had reached the respirometer. Compared to being at lower temperatures, there's 15 degrees Celsius, where it reached the limit of 5 minutes, but it was only able to go up 9.8 milliliters.
For the last experiment, we first turned on the spec at 20 and set the filter to 500. We let it warm up for 20 minutes. Then we prepared our blanks, which are tubes with glycol in the substrate. We filled 4 small test tubes with the following: 5 milliliters H2O and 1 drop of solution, and 2 drops of H2O2. Then we set the mold on the spec to transmitted speed, insert one of the following blanks to the spec 20 and adjusted the transmission to 100. We removed the blank tube from the spec and quickly poured its contents into tube A. And we quickly mixed them together, then poured the mixture back into the same small test tube, and we wiped the small tubes clean and inserted them to the spec. We repeated the steps 4, 8 to E for tubes B, C, and D.
In this experiment, we were studying a reaction that is catalyzed by peroxidase, in this case, glycol H2, which is found in turnips. And tube A was the negative control group as it contained a boiled turnip extract. So the enzyme peroxidase will not be able to activate inside as the glycol H2 has been neutralized. Tube B had 4.5 milliliters of water plus 0.5 milliliters of turnip extract. Tube C had 4.0 milliliters of water plus 1.0 milliliters of turnip extract, and tube D has 3.0 milliliters of water plus 2.0 milliliters of turnip extract. And so in this experiment, we measured the catalyzed reaction by the amount of light that was emitted. In tube D, we analyzed that the higher the concentration of turnip extract compared to water ended up catalyzing the reaction much faster compared to the rest, as in tube A had no significant change, tube B had medium change, and tube C had high change. However, tube D completely was catalyzed, thus producing glycol, which had the most color. And in this experiment, we can see that the higher concentration will result in a faster rate of transmittance.
Okay, thank you. And actually from the biolab, which is even more impressive. I heard Chrissie Cadet is here now. Chrissie, are you ready to present now if we go back to you?
Yes, I'm ready to present now.
Okay, can we go back to the Nomophobia, Patrick?
Hello, everyone. My name is Chrissie Cadet. Today, I will be presenting research that my group and I have conducted for our psychology class. It is about a modern phobia nowadays called nomophobia. Mobile phones have become an essential part of our daily lives and routines. It has become very unmanageable to think about departing with our phones, even for a second. Considering how modern life today, jobs, school, even doctor's appointment, requires us to use our mobile devices. However, everything has its pros and cons, even mobile devices. Mobile devices are an unlimited source of entertainment, allowing us to communicate with anyone from any part of the world and taking advantage of the devices in our studies and businesses. Unfortunately, research studies have also claimed that the use of mobile devices can have a negative impact on an individual's health. For example, using our mobile devices for a long period of time throughout the day can cause an individual to lack participation in social activities, disturbance of sleep, headaches, and even road traffic accidents. In fact, the device that connects us to anyone and everyone, when used for a long period of time, can actually impact our health. But it is also subject to a modern phobia, commonly known as nomophobia. In fact, nomophobia, shortened from nomophobia, is an extreme fear of not having our phone or not being able to use it. Doing our research of surveying demographic questions, we also learned that nomophobia could apply to anyone. The study claims that mobile phone has become a necessity because of countless perks that it provides, like personal diaries, access to emails, calculator, camera, and music players. Regardless of age, ethnicity, and gender, nomophobia can actually happen to anyone. In order to do this research, we have decided to stay away a day from our phones. We all had different experiences doing so. Meanwhile, some of us, on an average scale, wasn't annoyed, uncomfortable, anxious about not using our phones. The other two felt concerned for specific reasons, not being able to check on their family or friends, listening to music, or afraid of getting stranded somewhere. However, we all managed to overcome our different fears in order to do this research. We're around the same age in our team, about 19 to 24 years old, all in college from different ethnicities. And on an average scale, it didn't go too bad for us without our phones. Because on a normal day, we would stay on our phones for about 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours. However, we had some difficulties coping with the absence of our phones at some point. But they were the same reasons we later found in our research that many others in today's generation struggle with this. Not being able to listen to music, like I've mentioned before, social media, or being able to connect with their friends and family. Nevertheless, we were very surprised because when it came to compare our findings to a numerous study done, we've learned that over the years, the percentage of people having nomophobia worsened each year. Some are moderate, some are severe, some are mid-nomophobia. Most of us can go the whole day without checking our phone at least 5 or 6 times. Next slide, please. Some of us don't feel normal if we don't have our phones in our hands. Some of us have anxiety or problems to interact if we don't have our phone. We came to understand that this is only because most of us depend on our mobiles for information and connection. So it's normal to worry about losing them. It's normal that being able to find your phone probably spark worries about how to deal with losing photos, contacts, and other information. Even so, phobias are a type of anxiety. They provoke a significant fear response when you think of what you're afraid of, often causing emotional and physical symptoms. And despite this awareness, you may have a difficult time coping with or managing the reaction it causes, and therefore lead to some serious complications. So what we did after research, we agreed that technology, especially our phones, should be a servant, but not a master in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Okay, why don't we go look back to the UCC archives with Rebekah Altman and Stephanie Bretter. Thanks for your flexibility.
Hello, yes. Hello, my name is Rebekah Altman. And Stephanie. We would like to thank everyone here for allowing us to present our findings and experience while taking the HIS 290 course. For those who do not know what the HIS 290 course is, it is a history co-op class where it is located on the Elizabeth campus, and both Stephanie and I were able to have the opportunity to go onto the campus and work in the UCC archives. So that was really amazing. With the HIS 290 course, we were able to gain a hands-on experience that we were able to touch objects and go through the history of UCC. Go through the slides, you will see that the content we scanned are not just paper pieces, but also objects such as articles of clothing and photographs. So the first piece we have right here is a typesetting plate, which was used by the school newspapers and was actually one of the first objects I held within the archives. So a fun fact about the owl. A lot of people don't know why we have the owl as a mascot, but back in UJC, which was before we were UCC, we were a Union Junior College, we only offered night classes, which was only for teachers. It wasn't for our original mission for allowing higher education for all college students. It was initially for out of job teachers who were looking for a job. So the owl was chosen as our mascot because they were providing job opportunities for teachers. Next slide, please. This next picture is a picture we found in one of the yearbooks that was taken back in the 1930s. These are pictures of the janitors of the early days. It's one of Stephanie and my favorite pictures. So the janitors were very well beloved by the school, and they're very often featured in newspapers and yearbooks. If you see in the center, the middle guy, he was one of the most popular janitors at the school. His name was Pete the Janitor, and he was written and featured about in many of the school's newspapers and was also a close friend to President McKay. A lot of the students who did write about him in the newspaper also described him as a realist and was very nitpicky when it came to cleaning the halls, which I found was really funny. Next slide, please.
These things that we found, these particularly were from the archives for the sports, just some sports paraphernalia that we found. This is from the 1948-1949 schedule, the basketball schedule. What we found interesting about this is if you look on the schedule, we were battling against people at Drew University, Fairlight Dickinson, Seton Hall. So we thought that was interesting. I also noticed that there's the Institute of Advertising Arts. I thought that was fun that they would have a basketball team. So it was really interesting and fun to see how active they were in there, even though they were junior college. And at night, everybody was still very active in sports. And then in the next slide, this we took from the student newspapers. They were very concerned. Actually, they named themselves Concerned Students, decided that they were upset that our owl didn't have a name. So they ran a contest for everybody to get together and sort of name the owl. And the winner was going to get dinner at the flagship supper club on Route 22, which I don't know if anybody's from around the area. But if you've seen that flagship structure on Route 22, it used to be a supper club. So this boy right here with the owl is the one who won, and he won with the name Icarus. The picture of him was actually put in a local newspaper, so their little, their student newspaper and student contest got very involved in the county, and everybody really got interested in it. So it was a lot of fun to see these things and to see how we, how the whole county came together and cared about our owl. And so those are the only slides we have to show you, but we did want to just say thank you to Dr. Rotunda and Dr. Pappas for allowing us to have this opportunity. We highly suggest it to anyone else. The archives are a wonderful place to be. Some days we'd go in there and scan because part of what we're doing is trying to make it digital. Other days we would go in there and just read and just be on the floor for hours looking through boxes and finding great little treasures. So it is a wonderful, wonderful class. Wonderful opportunity.
Thank you both for presenting that. I've enjoyed it myself, actually. Is Brianna on now? Brianna, are we able to reconnect?
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Chris Laura Aldridge, and my partner is Brianna, but her mic isn't working, so I'll just fill in for her as she's trying to figure out whatever's going on. So we are presenting the college novel, which is The Hate U Give, and it is a young adult novel written by Angie Thomas. So before we really get into like prices and everything, we actually want to just tell you about a little bit about the author. So Angie Thomas, she was born in Jackson, Mississippi in 1998. Actually, can you go back to the other slide and with her face? You guys can really see the essence of her beat. So she was born in Jackson, Mississippi in 1998 and was known for rapping as a teen and being on the Right On magazine. She has a BFA, which is a Bachelor in Fine Arts in Belhaven University for creative writing, and her book, The Hate U Give, managed to become a live movie directed by George Tillman and starring Amanda Stenberg. Next slide, please. Okay. So the book, it ranges from $11.99 to $39.99. And the book, it depends on where you get it from as well, because if you go online and you want an audiobook, it ranges from all the way up to $40. And the book that I have, which is right here actually, when I looked at it, it was actually $12.99 when I bought it. So I bought it on sale, so that was really great. And then the book is 473 pages. Her other most popular works is, as you know, The Hate U Give, which came out in 2017, On the Come Up, which came out 2019, and Concrete Rose, which is coming out 2021. And they all focus on the lives of just young African-American, the struggles of young African-American men and women. So the awards, as you can see, the first one was the Goodreads Choice Award, which is the best young adult fiction in 2017. The Hate U Give. All of these awards were from The Hate U Give, from her book that she wrote. So she has the Goodreads Choice Awards, Best of the Best. She has also the Goodreads Choice Awards, Best Debut Goodreads Author. And the last one is the Audie Award for Young Adult. Next slide, please. Oh, that's why. I think it's switched. So you're able to see Angie Thomas. But you can go to the next one. Okay, so the storyline of The Hate U Give Star Carter is a 16-year-old African-American girl that has been dealing with the best of both worlds. Well, she thinks so until she witnesses the murder of her childhood best friend, Khalil. And what she says or does not say to the media can determine the fate of her life, one, and her neighborhood because of how dangerous everything was. The characters that stand out to us was Star Carter, Khalil, Maverick Carter, Haley, and King. And as you can see, the asterisks portray the antagonists that are in the story. So the protagonist is not only protagonist is Star Carter. And then the antagonist is not only Haley and King, but also society and the corrupt police that many people have to deal with, even in the modern world. The thematic elements is frustration. Thematic elements meaning the mood and stuff that you feel throughout the book. And a lot of it is frustration and mourning because Star is the only one that was there when the moment of events happened. But however, her silence seems to be turning the world and community upside down. And then mourning, since we know Star's thoughts and see how much reflection is really done as she's telling the story. Also, the actions of the characters throughout the book display a lot of feeling of loss. The salient feature, the fact that there were more issues involved with Khalil's death and Star's life that had nothing to do with the violence and injustice against the two races, but with the race that she belongs to as well. It amplifies the effect the hate you give has for those who may be living in the story. Okay, so this quote is just one of the quotes that stood out to us as well. And it's basically saying, I've seen it happen over and over again. A black person gets killed for just being black and all hell breaks loose. I've tweeted RIP hashtags, reblogged pictures on Tumblr, and signed every petition out there. And I always said that if I saw it happen to somebody, I would have the loudest voice, making sure the world knew what went down. Now I am that person and I am too afraid to speak. And that is by Angie Thomas. Next slide, please. Thank you for watching and listening.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, our next presentation is photosynthesis experiments, Belisha Kensa and Janice Menangsong.
Hi, my name is Belisha Kensa. My partner's name is Denise, and today we're going to be teaching you about photosynthesis and experiments based on photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is the reduction of carbon dioxide to a glucose molecule and the oxidation of water to oxygen. So the chemical reaction for photosynthesis is 6 CO2, which is carbon dioxide, plus 6 H2O, which is water, gives you 1 glucose molecule and 6 oxygen molecules. Photosynthesis is broken down into 2 phases. The first one is light-dependent reactions, and the second one is Calvin cycle reactions, also known as light-independent reactions. So light-dependent reactions are carried out by molecules in the thylakoid membrane, and they convert light energy to the chemical energy of ATP and NADPH, and they split H2O and release O2. Then, for Calvin cycle, also known as light-independent reactions, they take place in the stroma, and they use the ATP and NADPH from the first phase, light-dependent reactions, to convert carbon dioxide to the sugar G3P, and they return ADP and NADP plus to the light reactions. Let's talk about the first phase of photosynthesis, which is the light-dependent reactions. So light-dependent reactions are broken up into photosystem 1 and photosystem 2. But photosystem 2 comes first and photosystem 1 comes second. I'm going to give you a summary of what's happening in the light-dependent reactions, and I'm going to break it down into photosystem 2 and photosystem 1. So we see sunlight is hitting the photosystem, and it's giving a photon of light, which brings the electron to a higher energy level. And so at that higher energy level, that is associated with its position, so it's high. Then the electron will start going down the electron transfer chain. As it goes down the electron transfer chain, it loses energy, and that is when the electron will have to be re-energized. The re-energization process will be done through a photon of light, which brings the electron into a higher energy level, and that electron will be accepted by the electron carrier NADP plus to create NADPH. Now I'm going to break it down into photosystem 2, what's going on in there. So chlorophyll A, which is chlorophyll is the pigment that is in the control center of the reaction center of the chloroplast. So chlorophyll A is the molecule that will be able to lose the electrons. Chlorophyll A is found in this particular region known as the reaction center. Chlorophyll in the reaction center is reduced. When the photons are directed to the reaction center, the photons energize the electrons, and now chlorophyll will transfer those electrons, and chlorophyll will become reduced. So that's when you see the electrons are jumping to a higher energy level, and now there's a hole in that electron hole in chlorophyll A because it donated electrons to the primary electron acceptor. So that hole remains there, and then we withhold the process of photosynthesis. So what happens is that water transfers electrons to chlorophyll to fill that hole. And if water is transferring the electrons to chlorophyll, no water is becoming oxidized to CO2. Then we can see that there are hydrogen ions associated. Those hydrogen ions are going to be used to make ATP from ATP synthase. Chemoosmosis drives ATP synthase. The movement of hydrogen ions through the enzyme powers up the rod-of-the-mill phosphorylating ADP and creating ATP through the process of oxidative phosphorylation. When water reduces chlorophyll and water is getting oxidized, it usually is also referred to as the splitting of a water molecule. Splitting of a water molecule means that the water molecule loses electrons and now be reduced to oxygen. So that is how we get oxygen from the first cycle. So then photosystem 1 will accept the photons from the electron transfer chain, and it will excite the electrons associated to the chlorophyll, and then it will trigger the transporter because the acceptance of NADP plus by NADPH, and the enzyme involved will be an NADP plus reductase because it will basically reduce NADP plus into NADPH. Then we have the second phase of photosynthesis, which is the Calvin cycle, also known as light-independent reactions. So you start off, there are 3 phases to Calvin cycle. Phase 1 is carbon fixation, phase 2 is reduction, and phase 3 is regeneration or RUBP. So Calvin cycle involves an enzyme called Ribisco. Ribisco is a carboxylase enzyme, and it is the most abundant enzyme on the earth, and it takes care of the addition of CO2 to a 5-carbon sugar known as RUBP. Our Ribisco takes care of the addition of 1 carbon. So we start off with 3 CO2 molecules because Calvin cycle runs 3 times in order to reduce 1 G3P. And like I said before, G3P is a sugar, and we want to produce glucose, but the direct product of photosynthesis is G3P, which then gets converted into glucose. So we have the addition of CO2 to RUBP, which creates a 6-carbon sugar. The 6-carbon sugar turns into a phosphoglycerate, another intermediate that we saw in cellular respiration. ATP is invested. ATP that was synthesized in a light reaction will come into the light-independent reaction, providing the energy necessary for the synthesis of G3P. G3P must be reduced, and NADPH will take care of that reduction. So every 3 times the cycle runs, you'll be able to produce 6 G3Ps. Once you produce 3 G3Ps, then you can afford to release 1 because you only need 15 carbons to regenerate RUBP. 3 molecules of RUBP. State what happens again. So there are 3 carbons. Each carbon will attach 1 RUBP and will create the 6-carbon sugar. The splitting of the 6-carbon sugar into 3 PGAs. The PGA energy will need a reducing power of NADPH to create 6 G3Ps. You have 6 G3Ps, so at this point you can afford to release 1 of them, and then this 5 G3Ps can now convert back into RUBP, which is what needs to be generated in order for the cycle to run again and again. So this is basically the cycle of photosynthesis and how it runs. And now my partner Denise will show you the experiments that we did in our lab to show how photosynthesis runs in real life.
In this lab, we have like another minute or 2, so if you could just make sure you explain that quickly.
Carbon dioxide, light, and certain pigments for photosynthesis.
We will also extract photosynthetic pigments from leaves and use paper chromatography to separate them. In experiment 1, we tested if light was needed for photosynthesis. We took a leaf from the coleus plant in the light and a leaf from the coleus plant in the dark. We boiled the 2 leaves in alcohol until the green color dissolved from the leaf. We rinsed it with water, and then we covered the leaf with iodine. Covering the leaf with iodine detected starch. In another experiment, we tested if chlorophyll was needed for photosynthesis. Again, we used the coleus plant, which had 3 colors present: green, red, and pink. But in reality, there was only 2 pigments. Green, which is the chlorophyll in the membranes of the thylakoids of the chloroplast, and red, which was the anthocyanin in the central vacuole of the plant cells. We had put the leaf in different environments, such as boiling the leaf in water, boiling the leaf in alcohol, and treating it with iodine. As you can see, the leaves had changed colors, or had lost colors. In conclusion, we found out that chlorophyll is needed for photosynthesis because it is the primary pigment, and chlorophyll is needed to capture energy from light for photosynthesis to happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have artwork by Jason Cagle Jr. and Piaf Samdi.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Piaf, and my partner's name is Jason. So for our presentation, we decided to present some drawings that we did and what some of them to us. You can go to the. So this first drawing, I drew this. It doesn't really mean anything. The reason why I drew it is because I'm the kind of artist when I see something, I can draw it again. So I thought this was a good way to test myself, how good I am in drawing. That's why I drew this one. You can go next slide.
How you guys doing? My name is Jason, like my partner said. So with this drawing, it's just a look on nostalgia for me. And it's just a visual representation of how we carry our memories and how the things we cherish and love never dies. As you can see, there's a poster in the background of a favorite rapper. We have a famous rapper. He passed away a long time ago. But a lot of his lyrics resonate with the way we live and how we think. And the teddy bear is just to embrace our childhood and the things we did in the past. You can go to the next slide.
So this one is that's the second drawing that's my second drawing. This drawing means a lot for me because it's a portrait of my mom. The reason why I drew my mom is because she means a lot for me. She basically do everything for me. I feel without her, I wouldn't be where I am right now. What's really make me really shocked is the fact that she gave up her dream so I could successful in life, and because of that, I think she's a hero for me, and she really motivated me to get through life. So that's why I drew her. You can go to the next slide.
Okay, this is it's just a visual a duality of pain. Sometimes we hold our pain in and it bursts out of us, we're crying, and then we have another one where we just get upset and then we cause havoc and Go to the next one. So with this one, I wanted to display how life is as a Black person in America. For a long time, we've been dealing with a lot of issues as far as racism and segregation. And then a lot of times Black people are being killed by people that are supposed to protect us or just people that feel hate in general. So this is just a representation of my thoughts and how we show love for this country, but in return we just attacked and treated as animals. That's the end of our presentation.
Very thoughtful, thank you. Next we have Brian Beirano, Julia Landicho, and Ben Morley with The World of Forms.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian Bejarano. And I worked with Julia Landicho and Ben Morley on the world of forms for Philosophy 205.
You're on mute, Ben.
Of course. So many of you know Plato as he's one of the most well-known philosophers throughout all of mankind and history. Many of you may not know that he founded the Western world's first university, which was the Academy in Athens, and his discussions in those times ranged from any number of topics, from aesthetics to political philosophy, all the way to the philosophy of language. What we'll be focusing on today, however, is his exploration of the theory of forms and his ideas on the world of forms. So, Plato believed that because the world is impermanent and always changing, it is therefore unreliable. He believed that there is instead an alternate reality, an alternate world, called the world of forms, that is a reliable and permanent home for all ideas and forms of every object. He believed that the form of any one thing does not exist in the thing and instead exists in the world of forms. What this means is that the form of any one thing, basically what it is tangibly, the matter of it is separate, is instead a recreation of the perfect form from the world of forms. And he believed that we would see this world of forms prior to birth, and then after that, every item being created is an attempt to recreate this perfect form.
So Aristotle's form is an idea that gives matter identity. Unlike Plato, he does not believe that this exists in an otherworldly state. As you could see in this quote, he basically says that if form is in a part of the substance, how could it be apart from it? So basically, things are composed of both form and matter. Form gives matter particularity, and matter gives form concreteness. You need both of them for the thing to exist.
And the way that we can apply this theory of form in the modern day is through artificial intelligence or virtual reality. As stated before, the forms is essentially a source for everything we experience. And so VR and AIs are things that we can actually experience. But the question that should come to mind is, how do we know what is really real? VRs and AIs can feel incredibly real and provide a reality that humans can't attain on their own, and also knowledge. Humans differ from artificial intelligence in that we are born naturally. Technology is created by us. And while we can assume this is true, artificial intelligence creates things from programmed algorithms, meaning they essentially would have to bypass the world of forms, which also means that they lack human reasoning. There is an unknown knowledge source when it comes to advanced artificial intelligence technology, meaning there is no way for us to know what is between the two realities. This should leave you all to wonder if our reality is actually real or less real than the reality of artificial intelligence. Considering we can't fully understand the reality artificial intelligence can provide us. And I also linked a New York Times article which talks about how AIs have actually created data, things that are programmed for them, and they actually go beyond what humans can actually perceive. And with that said, that is the end of our presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Coming up next, we have PTK with Learning Outside the Lines.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So my name is Michelle, and this is Vincent. Would you like to go?
Hi. So before we begin the presentation, for those of you who don't know, Phi Theta Kappa is an international community college honor society. They normally recruit around the beginning of every semester. So any new students who are interested in joining, There are many great scholarship opportunities at transfer schools for those who are interested, and a link will be provided further into the presentation for those looking to get more information. So to start, for our chapter's research project for this semester, we chose to focus on something very current, the coronavirus. I'm pretty sure there's not a single person in this chat room who doesn't know what that is, so I'll skip on providing context. COVID-19 has had a colossal effect on our education system, and we as a chapter wanted to evaluate how this has affected students and what we can draw from the experience that we are all sharing during this pandemic. Next slide, please.
So the HII team decided to come up with a comparative research to show how COVID-19 has impacted our education systems and how it has been treated in different organizations around the world. Basically, we want to know how remote learning was treated before the pandemic and now during the pandemic, and how students have been reacting to it. Next slide, please.
So these were the findings of our research. There were a few contradictions, funnily enough. Both samples are inherently biased in the fact that most research on remote and online education that predates the pandemic is focused on a very specific group of people. Only certain students opt to take online or remote classes, and generally there's students who prefer them. So it's hard to find data on the negatives when only the people who want to take the classes are taking them. And the pandemic presented a unique opportunity to evaluate the other side of that. But that data is also flawed in the fact that many schools were forced to implement remote education systems at a scale that none of them were prepared for. So overall, more research needs to be done. But what we were generally able to find is that pre-existing data says that remote and online courses yield high student success rates. It allows for increased flexibility, not only in class, but in extracurriculars as well. If you missed a class or a meeting, you can easily gain access to that pre-recorded lecture, or you can easily message someone. It also involves decreased costs because you don't have to pay for electricity and heating that you would in a classroom. There's a lot of other minimal costs that are associated with meeting in person that are curbed by meeting online. And then there's also new learning outcomes. There's new ways to stimulate students, new ways to present information to them that you might not encounter in the traditional classroom setting. On the counter to that, most students report that during this pandemic, it has been a highly dissatisfactory experience, and that is chalked up mostly to general unfamiliarity with the technology that we are using, both for students and faculty. And then it also makes it harder for students to engage themselves from home or wherever they're choosing to attend class. It's much harder to pay attention to a computer screen than it would be if you're actually in the classroom. And then it also disadvantages low-income students if they don't have the means to purchase the technology required for remote education. So we've got some conflicting views here. Next slide, please.
Now, a way that in which we implemented how we can make it easier was to make a Discord virtual hallway for our specific Phi Theta Kappa. Basically, it's like a group where you can go in. It has different hallmarks. It has different sections. You can ask different questions in different fields, and the specific person delegated to answer that specific field will answer you. It's basically like meeting people in the hallway in person, but virtually. Now, to get the findings that we found earlier, we conducted some research and we also made some surveys with the students so we can get their opinion and their perspective so we can see how they have also viewed, not solely based on ours.
And then this Discord server was created to combat those perceived difficulties that we observed. As I mentioned before, anybody who is interested in becoming a member of Phi Theta Kappa, I would jot down this link here. I'm going to also put one in the chat. It is the hub of chapter activities for the foreseeable future, as long as we're remote.
Okay, thank you
Next slide,
so much. Oh, okay, you can throw anything in the chat if you want to acknowledge and throw the Discord in there. Thank you so much. All right, and our final presentation is Sulfa Drugs. Maria Alejandra Acosta, Nicole Cordova, Brian Dorga, Stephen Lopez, Leticia Oliveira, Anthony Rocha, Alessandro Summer, and Jonathan Vitas.
Yes, all right. So hello, everyone. I'm Alessandra. Today, the organic chemistry lab our whole class will be presenting sulfa drugs. Dr. Khan actually helped us find this topic. It is a topic that we will be going into more in Orgo 212, but we're going to try our best today to explain sulfa drugs to you guys and give a little bit of context. So Nicole is going to go into the next slide on a little bit about the history.
So, sulfa drugs were introduced by Gerard Dogmack in 1935, which provided the first successful therapies for many bacterial infections. They were the forerunners in antibiotics. Next slide, please. So how this started was in 1927, he was recruited by IG Farben, which was the largest pharmaceutical company at the time. His team worked with azodides, and their main goal was to find effective substituents that could treat bacterial diseases. This was something that was very important at the time because back then people were dying from bacterial diseases, like no matter what age there wasn't a cure for it. So azodides have nitrogen double bond coupling, and for a test, one of the hydrogens attached to the nitrogen was replaced by a sulfotamide group. This yielded positive results, so the group continued working with sulfotamide substituents. Eventually, 35 compounds later, KL730 was produced and patent Prontozo. It was working well for laboratory mice, but Dogmack decided to collaborate with the local hospital to test its effect on patients, and it was effective. And eventually, Prontozo became the drug of choice for bacterial infections, and it quickly spread throughout the world. Eventually, sulfa drugs were used to treat meningitis, childbed fever, blood poisoning, and burns.
All right, so now I'm going to mention a little bit about what exactly are sulfa drugs. And they're basically an antimicrobial. And to define that, we're going to look a little bit into the Greek prefix, root, and suffix. So anti just meaning against, micros meaning little, and bios meaning life. So they're basically just agents that act against microbial organisms. And some examples of those happen to be bacteria, viruses, fungi, and protozoa. And specifically, we're going to be talking about how they're an antibacterial. Next, yeah, okay. So what exactly do they do? Like I said, they act as an antibacterial. They basically inhibit the growth of bacteria inside our bodies. And how exactly they do that is by inhibiting folic acid synthesis. Now, I know that sounds a bit random, but folic acid is basically what is needed to create more bacteria. The folic acid synthesis is basically what's needed to trigger the synthesis of nucleotides and the amino acids that kind of make up the DNA of more bacteria. So the only thing that kind of goes against that is that bacteria can kind of resist sulfur drugs. They can mutate basically and act against it, so it wouldn't be effective to them anymore. But luckily, sulfa drugs also inhibit the resistance of bacteria. And the way that they do that is with a hydrogenated sulfonamide derivative that has the potential of basically counteracting this resistance. Brianna, I think she did have some problems with her microphone, but she should be okay now. She's going to talk about more on sulfa drugs. Okay, so hopefully Brianna's okay with this, but then if we can't hear her, then I'll just talk about this part as well. But basically, sulfa drugs, they treat different things that occur in the body, things like urinary tract infections, uterine infections, meningitis, sinus infections, and specifically what they worked most against is that urinary tract infections. So that's just kind of a little intel on what exactly they work against.
I'm going to be talking about like the toxicity of sulfa drugs. So even though sulfa drugs are very beneficial, they can still have like some toxicity to them. So obviously, like, it's a drug. So if you take it in large amounts, then it's obviously not going to be good for you. But like specialists, they have been able to change the structure of the drug and to make it less toxic, because when you change the structure of a compound, it changes the function of it. So when they were able to change that, it was able to be less toxic to people. Another thing that can happen is some people can be allergic to the drug. And usually it's because they might have an allergy to the sulfur in it. But most of the people who say that they're allergic to it, actually only about 3% of people who are allergic to it, it's because of the sulfonamide antibacterials in the sulfa drug. So that's why they would be allergic to it. I also added some side effects. It was dizziness, and these are like some basic side effects that you would get from any like antibacterial drug. But it was dizziness, headache, lethargy, and that's kind of like a sleepiness that people can get, and then diarrhea, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, and serious skin rashes.
And so I'm going to talk a little bit about sulfomethoxazole. It's a specific sulfa drug that's used to often treat STIs because it's highly soluble in urine. So that's the way it gets to the active site. Like other sulfa drugs, it works by inhibiting folic acid production, which is something that all bacteria need to grow. Go to the next slide, please. This is just kind of the mechanisms that go on. It competes for PABA, which is an acid in this chain, and it's often, it binds to DHPS. So that's where it kind of interjects itself, and that's the first step in creating a cofactor for this folic acid. It's often paired with another drug, like you can see down there, it's trimethoprim. That is another drug that they use in tandem with it to make sure that folic acid is completely stopped.
Okay, so hi. I'm going to talk a little bit about the synthesis of sulfa drugs. For the people that are not into STEM or anything, if you don't know what synthesis is, in organic chemistry, this is the construction of complex chemical compounds out of simple ones. And the basis for the synthesis of sulfa drugs specifically, it's aromatic sulfonation. This is an organic reaction in which a hydrogen atom in an anurine is replaced by a sulfonic acid functional group in an electrophilic aromatic substitution. Sulfa drugs are prepared commercially by this process. This is actually a key step in it. And aromatic sulfonation does not occur naturally, but it is widely used in the preparation of dyes and pharmaceutical agents like these drugs. In this picture, this is a mechanism for electrophilic sulfonation of an aromatic ring. And this is an electrostatic potential map. Like, it's something that can happen of the reactive electrophile. It shows the sulfur and hydrogen are actually the most positive atoms. And the aromatic ring can be sulfonated by the reaction with Filman sulfuric acid, which is a mixture of H2SO4 and SO3. And the reactive electrophile can be either HSO3 plus or neutral SO3. It depends on the conditions. In this one specifically, it's HSO3 plus. The sulfonation reaction is readily reversible, which means that it can either occur forward or backward, but again, it depends on the reaction's conditions. Like sulfonation is favored by a strong acid, and desulfonation is favored in hot dilute aqueous acid. Next slide.
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure. So for my slide, I did the synthesis of sulfonylamide. And basically, there are different types of sulfa drugs. Like there's a sulfapyridine and sulfanilamide. And some things about sulfa drugs is that they were used against bacterial infection. And another thing that they would use back then was that it was used to help the wounded during like World War II, and it's still used for urinary tract infection, as Steven mentioned earlier. So in this case, first we have acetyl and anilamide, and the NHs are amide, and we want to turn that into an amine, and also to get the sulfonylamide. So the first thing we do is that we do a electrophilic aromatic substitution, and which is when we learn in chapter 16 in Orgo 2. And basically what we're going to do is that we're going to add the chlorine to the compound, the acetyl anilamide. And we're also adding the sulfur, which the sulfur will turn it into a sulfonylamide. And then after that, we do a substitution by ammonia, which we will learn in chapter 24. And basically what we're going to do is that we're going to add ammonia to the compound. And if you see on the top right of the third line angle formula for the compound, we have ammonia, which is NH3, but up there it's written as NH2 because we're removing the chlorine, and one of the hydrogens is going to end up bonding with that chlorine, so we left with NH2. And then next we do our alkaline hydrolysis, also known as a basic hydrolysis, which we would learn in chapter 24. And what it does is that it's used with the means in order to give us our sulfonylamide. So what it's going to do is that it's going to turn our amide into an amine. And in this case, we're using NOH to do that. And yeah, and this is like the simple version of it, but each individual steps, like from steps A to B, when you're doing the electrophilic aromatic substitution, there could be multiple steps in between that because of the mechanisms where you're transferring electrons and everything like that. But yeah.
Hi. So the lab is based on p-acetyl benzene sulfonyl chloride synthesis, but I'm focusing on the synthesis of p-acetyl benzene sulfonamide. So essentially, what happens on the left, as you can see, it's p-acetyl benzene sulfonyl chloride, and it reacts with ammonia. So whenever it reacts with ammonia, ammonia essentially breaks down the sulfur and oxygen bond, and the lone pair from the nitrogen creates a bond with sulfur, which you can see on the right arrow. And essentially what happens there is that since we broke down the double bond with the oxygen and the sulfur, oxygen becomes negatively charged, and the ammonia group becomes positively charged, and the hydrogen transfers to the oxygen, which is the proton transfer, as you can see on the bottom arrow. And from that, hydrogen is removed, and oxygen then creates a double bond with sulfur, and chlorine turns into a chlorine ion. So essentially what you're doing is a substitution of the chlorine with the ammonia group.
Good.
That's the end. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a fascinating range of information, everyone. On behalf of American Honors, I want to thank the students for sharing your impressive work. I want to thank our audience. There'll be a quiz on Monday. And I wish everyone a lovely evening. Thank you.